On a bright and sunny morning, silver slimes, among the most elusive of monsters, emerged upon the earth. Hidden among the trees, two young men observed the group intently, making sure to stay out of sight. Without warning, one individual broke away from the group and sprinted directly at the slime monsters. The other person intervened, urging him to hold on and not act just yet. In the following instant, a powerful blow strikes, causing the monster's cores to break apart completely. Was the young man's name, as a result of this powerful blow. He acquires items of S-rank quality. The character wore armor, gloves, and boots, all crafted from shimmering silver slime. A boy dressed in a green hoodie and a girl gazed at him in astonishment, unable to believe what they had just witnessed, since landing critical hits and obtaining rare items almost never happened. The young man considers how fortunate seems to be. Remained uncertain about the origins of his collection of S-rank items. To him, it felt as though they were compensation for everything he had endured in the past. A memory from his past life appears, revealing him as an adventurer holding the bronze rank. At 85 years of age, the person found themselves on the ground level of Tokyo's dungeon. Without warning, a man held up his smartphone, revealing on the screen that monsters were drawing near. The situation outside had already deteriorated beyond hope, leaving them with no choice but to find a way out. One of the group members proposed that venturing further into the dungeon might be a wiser choice, while another voiced his concern, arguing that it would be too risky because creatures could also emerge from the deeper floors. He then faced and urged him to run away, explaining that this wasn't the moment for monster hunting. Giving the hero a reassuring pat on the shoulder, he tried to encourage him. The hero pulls his hand back and moves toward the slimes, paying no attention to the young man's caution. The group advised the young man to stop bothering the elderly man. The group ridiculed him, claiming he was just an old man whose abilities never seemed to get any better. A younger man shoved the elderly gentleman, making him lose his balance and tumble to the ground. The old man rests on the earth, his hood fallen away to reveal his face. Many years have slipped past in what feels like an instant. Ever since the adventurer appeared, the world has not been the same. Personal development had become intertwined with a well-known ranking system. A person's level would go up only after they managed to overcome a monster. With each new level gained, their abilities would also become stronger. A young man once wished he could become at least 5 points stronger. Adventurers occasionally discovered new magical powers and skills, and such occurrences were generally accepted as ordinary. In situation, however, his level had already reached 98. Despite everything, his power, energy, and quickness all remained stuck at a level of 5. He possessed a dexterity score of 4, held a magic power level of 3, and had a resistance rating of 2. The elderly man had experienced many years, and had always worked harder than anyone around him. After spending years battling nothing but feeble creatures, he at last achieves level 98. Through unwavering determination, he alone managed to achieve this level, a feat no one else had accomplished. The elderly man defeats numerous slimes. His strikes carried such immense force that his own sword snapped under the pressure. He was driven by the desire to attain level 99, which marked the ultimate achievement. He endures every challenge, convinced that the prize awaiting him will make all his struggles worthwhile. After his sword shattered, he began attacking the monsters by sinking his teeth into them. In time, the character attains level 99. His hands shook with disbelief as he realized he had at last reached the final level. He cannot contain his happiness and collapses to his knees. He becomes overwhelmed with hopelessness upon realizing that his strength has improved by just a single point. He weeps as regret washes over him, believing that all the years he lived have been squandered. Felt utterly broken, with no trace of hope remaining in his heart. He lay motionless, his body drained of energy, feeling as though he had reached the end of his will to live. The protagonist had endured a life filled with hardship and misery. He had failed to protect his mother and had brought sorrow to his sister's life. Everyone regarded her with disdain. Tears streamed down his face as he convinces himself that the ordeal has at last come to an end. a fierce creature lunged at, ending his life. However, the system soon noticed a critical malfunction within stat parameters. As a way to make amends, he is reborn and granted 9,999 extra luck points. The protagonist then opens his eyes to a new beginning. His eyesight remained unfocused as he struggled to see clearly. A woman beamed at him, offering her congratulations for his new status as an adventurer. His mind swirled with uncertainty as he tried to make sense of the situation unfolding before him. The girl wonders aloud if there is a problem. Feeling a wave of nervousness, expressed his gratitude to her for giving him the pendant. Sometime afterward, the hero found himself by himself, his mind drifting through a maze of thoughts. He gazes intently at his smartphone, noticing that the date displayed matches the exact day he signed up to become an adventurer. The man with green eyes looks genuinely puzzled, as he recalls noticing something related to bonus points. He checked his stats and couldn't help but chuckle when he noticed that his attributes hadn't changed at all. He continued scrolling, and his eyes widened in surprise when a new column suddenly appeared on the screen. Previously, fortune had been absent. The hero stared in disbelief, unable to comprehend how his luck stat had reached its absolute peak. He wondered if this characteristic had been an unseen factor shaping his previous existence. He remained unsure, his past 70 years filled with nothing but bad luck. He chooses to verify his suspicion by setting out to hunt a few slimes. The hero stood at the entrance of Tokyo's dungeon, realizing he was on the very first floor. They were remembered as marks that could never be erased. Noticed the slime monsters ahead, and an odd sense of recognition washed over him as if he had encountered them before. Without warning, he catches sight of something shifting at the edge of his vision. He stares in disbelief as he spots the incredibly rare silver slime before him. In his previous life, he had encountered this monster just a single time before it vanished without a trace. The silver slime holds a reputation for awarding a huge number of points. Despite its reputation, the creature was well known for fleeing whenever it sensed even the slightest hint of trouble. Believes that if he moves quickly enough, a single swing of his sword will be enough to capture the creature lurking ahead of him. A sudden burst of light drew his gaze, revealing an arrow lodged firmly in the earth. The man responsible for throwing the object offers an apology, while silently fumes, cursing the individual in his thoughts. A rare slime, startled by the sudden booming sound, would almost certainly try to escape. Unexpectedly, the slime remains still instead of fleeing. Rather than backing down, it gets ready to strike at. The slime lunged in the hero's direction, intent on closing the distance between them. He retaliates, swinging his sword with precision and landing a solid hit on his opponent. She drove her blade straight into the heart of the silver slime, tearing it apart. In a single moment, the hero's abilities surged to 4 times their previous strength. The force of his blow was so immense that it broke his sword cleanly in half. He found himself in need of a replacement weapon. Without warning, a sudden burst of light illuminated the area close to him. Stares in disbelief, struggling to accept what he sees before him. The green-eyed boy received a sword, an item of S-rank rarity, marking an impressive beginning for him. The silver slime boosted the wielder's attack strength, yet it also brought a significant risk. Every strike had a 30% likelihood of missing its target. Admires the sword with satisfaction, then readies himself to resume his hunt. He glanced around and was shocked to discover 4 shimmering silver slimes surrounding him. He questions whether the scene unfolding before him is just a dream, as all 4 monsters rush at him at once. Comes to the conclusion that fighting is his only option, taking into account the features of his newly acquired weapon. Comes to the conclusion that overcoming all of his opponents simultaneously is beyond his ability. He launched a series of relentless attacks, refusing to let up. She struck several vital points in quick succession. The hero watched in disbelief as every monster collapsed before him. Silver armor, along with boots and gloves, remained behind. After an hour spent searching the area, he managed to defeat 10 silver slimes. They gathered unique treasures from every place they visited. At this point, the hero firmly believes that his good fortune is real. Filled with joy, he reclines on the grass and lets his eyes wander up to the sky above. He believes that his good fortune will surely help him rise to greatness as an adventurer. He aspires to achieve success that will earn his family's pride. The green-eyed boy thought of his ailing mother and sister as he lifted his hand toward the sky, hope filling his heart while he dreamed of everything he might achieve. All at once, jolts upright, a wave of relief washing over him as he remembers there is a place he can call home. After 7 decades spent alone, he yearned deeply for a reunion with his family. He rose to his feet and sprinted in the direction of his house. He felt uncertain about which room on the second floor belonged to him. After spending the final years of his life without a home, he no longer remembered how the place was arranged. After some time searching, he finally locates his apartment. There were 2 people facing 3 others. A nameplate displayed the name. His hands shook uncontrollably while he extended them toward the door handle. He questioned the source of his anxiety, uncertain why uneasiness had settled over him. He calms his nerves by taking slow, measured breaths. Right as he reaches for the door handle, poised to open it. The door moved by itself, and his sister stood there in the doorway. She also possessed striking green eyes just like his. As she saw him, she offered a warm greeting. Caught in a hurry, the young man wraps his arms around, holding her closely. She feels bewildered by his unexpected behavior, questioning whether he might be playing a trick on her. Pleaded for release, yet only tightened his embrace around her. He was determined that, from now on, no one would be able to steal his loved ones or the things he cherished most. The hero recounted all the events too, explaining everything that had occurred. She feels astonished, realizing that by a stroke of luck, they are able to assist their mother. It would require a considerable amount of work. The following day, exchanged some uncommon goods for cash, then chose to use his earnings to make a purchase. Participated in an auction, offering a bid of 10 million yen. He succeeded in obtaining a potion capable of curing the most severe status ailments. The hero made their way to the hospital, room where their mother had been admitted. Before stepping into the room, they paused to request permission and offered a warm greeting to their mother. Their mother beams with joy at the sight of her children and eagerly asks about their well-being. Responds by pointing out that the question should actually be directed at them instead. Carefully unpacks the box she purchased, revealing an assortment of tasty treats to her mother. The woman expressed her gratitude, advising that next time, she need not bring anything and should instead spend the money on herself. The young man reassured his mother that finances were not a concern, while the green-eyed girl chimed in, mentioning that they also had an additional present. Surprise flickered across the patient's face as curiosity took over, prompting them to wonder about the situation. Explained that, although it might seem strange, his mother needed to drink what he was offering. He passed a bottle of elixir to the woman. With pride, shared that her older brother had worked hard in the dungeon to earn the money and purchased the elixir just for her. The woman's eyes widened in astonishment upon realizing that, who had only recently started his journey as an adventurer, somehow possessed the means to purchase something so costly. The man with green eyes explained that his good fortune was simply a matter of luck, and he encouraged his mother to take the elixir. The woman unscrews the bottle with caution and takes a sip from it. Without warning, a radiant light began to shine from the woman's body. And carefully watched the woman, wanting to know about her condition. The woman responds with a joyful expression, explaining that a great weight has been lifted from her shoulders. A sense of immense relief washes over her. The hero's lips curled into a satisfied grin, a wave of happiness washing over them. Praised her brother enthusiastically, expressing her approval of his efforts. The woman explained that the potion had a terrible taste, prompting her son to offer her a dessert to help wash away the unpleasant flavor. When the doctor examined the woman, he observed that her symptoms had lessened and noted that the illness was no longer advancing. She was required to attend a brief rehabilitation program, once she completed her time there. She was allowed to rest and heal in her own house, so the 3 of them were able to share a home once more. For the first time in a long while, it all seemed so surreal, as if she were drifting through a dream. The woman manages to have her meals at home. Once she finished, she moved to the sink and started cleaning the dishes. The green-eyed girl feels a surge of happiness as she notices their mother's health improving, yet reminds her that this progress is still insufficient. Fixes her gaze on him, silently anticipating that he will offer an explanation. The hero clarified that the potion would only offer short-term relief and would not address the underlying problem. The situation leaves the girl with green eyes feeling troubled, and she starts to question what actions they ought to take next. The hero explained that acquiring a far stronger L-rank item, such as an elixir, was necessary. Remembered watching television commercials for a similar item, which had been discovered by a famous adventurer renowned around the world. The rare elixir rested far below, hidden on the 50th floor, beyond the reach of any sale or purchase. The sister regarded it as an extraordinary treasure, unmatched by anything else. The hero silently shared her belief. A unique item represented a rare treasure that only its discoverer could use, serving as a reward reserved for those who managed to overcome powerful opponents. The girl with green eyes wondered aloud whether purchasing it was impossible, questioning if they were required to search for it on their own. The sister questions in her mind whether her brother is capable of reaching as deep as the 50th floor. Admitted that he would not survive. Hearing this, the girl concluded that they would be unable to obtain the elixir. The hero offered a reassuring smile, explaining that although he was supposed to die in theory, his fortune had recently changed. He was able to turn the experience and information from his past life into a powerful tool. He recalls that the elixir was sometimes located on upper levels as well. He is aware of one unique case, the boss residing on the 20th floor, a creature known as the Ancient. The elixir was the uncommon item that the boss would sometimes leave behind. However, since the item was uncommon, there was only a slim possibility that he would show up. In his past life, the hero recalled encountering mention of the elixir just a single time. Despite the way things had been going for him lately, it seemed certain that he would be able to get it. The sister observed her brother's face and became aware of an unusual, uneasy look in his eyes. Wondered aloud whether his expression truly looked suspicious. The girl gives a playful wink, confident that her brother is capable of accomplishing anything. The young man's sister's supportive words lifted his spirits, yet he recognized that he still had some preparations to complete. Feels puzzled when she hears the term preparations. The hero firmly believes that a solution can always be found. He moved toward the family photograph, his mind focused on the challenges that awaited him below. To venture further into the dungeon, he realized he would require more supplies. The first thing on his list was proper gear. The large sword, crafted from silver slime, boasted impressive attack strength. However, each strike had a 30% likelihood of missing its target. Its blade, covered in layers of silver slime, also provided a chance, 1 in 3, to lessen incoming damage. As he gathers his belongings, his sister keeps a careful eye on him. She wondered aloud about his plans, specifically asking if he intended to visit the dungeon, and received a confirming answer from the hero. The girl with green eyes wondered aloud if her brother truly intended to leave dressed as he was, since most warriors typically donned much bulkier armor. In response, the young hero explained that his abilities were limited. The boy glanced over his statistics and came to the conclusion that luck was his only ally. His current abilities made it impossible to equip full armor, leaving him with only the sword as an option. Believes that his critical hit has unlocked several new abilities. Among these is the Great Layering Strike, a move that offers a 30% chance to land a powerful critical blow. Wondered aloud whether the hero wished to improve his abilities, then mentioned that there was also a 5th floor. The young man recalls Alice Crown and the Broken Forest. It was known that within the depths of that forest, the monsters sometimes left behind a scarce and valuable treasure known as the Miracle Fruit. The sister reminded her brother to stay safe as she handed him the lunch she had prepared. Expressed gratitude toward her, and immediately a single package of food appeared within the system window. The hero stepped through the doorway, setting off on his journey. He soon arrives at the 5th floor, a place referred to as the Broken Forest. Nearly every corner of the area teemed with plant-like creatures, making this level particularly simple to complete. However, it remained classified as a low-level area, one that countless adventurers had already explored and completed. Believes that having a map will keep any trouble at bay. He pressed on with his travels until he arrived at the colony inhabited by. These creatures, known as, possessed the ability to blend seamlessly into their surroundings through camouflage. They blend in so well that most people mistake them for regular trees, though their disguise still has a few flaws. Upon closer inspection, one would notice that the leaves appeared to have no visible veins or clear pattern. The hero notices that the trees have unusual roots, and soon discovers one that displays these peculiar traits. The Trents relied on their roots, stretching and curling them beneath their bodies, to travel from place to place. At the instant the hero catches sight of the crimson eyes, a surge of joy filled him, and with newfound energy he unleashed a powerful strike that cut deep into the monster. Believes that if he stays alert for any sudden attacks, overcoming the monsters will be simple for him. He soon discovers a miraculous fruit, a rare treasure that is seldom found. Took a bite of the fruit, and remarked with surprise that its flavor reminded him of an apple or a pear. Despite everything, the important thing was that his strength had grown by 1%. The miracle fruit slightly increases a person's stats. Following that event, the hero relentlessly pursued every Trent, driven by an intense determination. He repeatedly battled his opponents and devoured his meals, one after another. As the hero sat there, he quickly grew tired of the fruit's flavor and decided to eat the meal his sister had prepared for him instead. The hero proceeded to open the window displaying his statistics, and upon seeing the numbers, he understood that he had achieved his highest possible growth. His strength had risen by 27 points, while his vitality improved by 25. His dexterity climbed by 16, agility by 15, magic by 13, and resistance by 14 points. At last, he reached the typical strength expected of a warrior his age. Satisfied with his progress, he chose to end his training. Without warning, he becomes aware that another person is nearby. He spun around abruptly, demanding to know the identity of the person nearby. A voice pointed out that it was unfair for him to claim everything alone, hinting that the newcomer was about to learn a hard lesson. Two men stood before the boy with green eyes. One flashed a mouthful of gold teeth, while the other wore a shiny gold ring. Replied that he hadn't noticed any proof of adventurer status on them, and wondered aloud if they were the type to make money at other people's expense. The smaller man nodded in agreement, explaining that a boy was relying solely on his gear. The man with the golden teeth informed that his life would be spared, but only if he abandoned his equipment. The hero is aware of crawlers, a group of wanderers who break the law and engage in illegal activities. He had never imagined that he would come across them. The tall man taunted the hero, insinuating that fear had stolen his voice. The hero makes it clear that he refuses to offer even the smallest help to those who break the law. The men grew irritated by this and began to ridicule. They insulted him, labeling him as someone who knew nothing, and threatened that if he did not hand over the equipment, they would end his life. The smaller man taunted the hero, declaring that he was too weak to handle a fight where he was outnumbered 2-1. The hero launched an assault against the enemies by unleashing the powerful Mighty Lair strike technique. The tall man let out a laugh, certain that a useless skill with a 70% chance of missing could never land a hit on him. The man launched a powerful beasting strike at the hero, initiating his attack. The hero swiftly evades the incoming strike. The tall man's eyes widened in surprise as he realized he encountered no opposition. The hero launched an attack, sending his opponent crashing to the ground. The shorter man is convinced that the hero possesses extraordinary luck. Firmly announces that the situation has become a direct confrontation between just the two of them. He breathed a sigh of relief and went on to clarify that beasting strike was a technique available exclusively to those who had attained level 25. This indicated that his adversary possessed greater skill and experience than he did. He goes on to explain that the bee's sting strike lands with remarkable precision. Avoiding it became almost impossible. Despite its advantages, the skill came with a drawback. It caused a 30% decrease in attack power. Thanks to the slime-damaged clothing, the hero suffered just a fraction of the intended harm, receiving only 30% of the full impact. Had fortune not favored him, he could have ended up with a gaping wound in his abdomen. The shorter man's eyes widened in shock as he realized the hero had defeated his companion with a single blow. The hero informed the smaller man that surrendering could earn him forgiveness. The man wearing the gold ring grows frustrated, feeling slighted by the hero's attitude. He steps back, insisting that the hero is not taking him seriously enough. Confidently, he declares that handling a fighter like from afar poses no challenge for someone of his abilities. The hero nodded in agreement, believing he was too far away to do anything to his opponent. The thief let out a taunting laugh and questioned whether he had finally chosen to give up. The hero responds with unwavering confidence, making it clear that he has no intention of ever doing that. He proceeded to retrieve an ornate tree branch that appeared on his stats screen. The thief let out a mocking laugh as he questioned whether the hero understood the true nature of the object in his possession. Confidently asserts his awareness of the object he is holding. The green-eyed man explained that the branch he held was called a random staff, mentioning that he had taken it from a trent that had not produced any fruit. The smaller man believes the hero lacks experience. The random staff was an uncommon item, yet its unpredictable nature made it unreliable and prone to casting magic spells at random. He goes on to explain that the outcome depends purely on chance, so the likelihood of the green-eyed man successfully using magic is low. The thief mentally figures out the probability of pulling it off. The thief determines that there is a 60% chance will succeed, leaving a 40% risk that he will fail. There was a 30% likelihood of acquiring beginner-level magic, a 9% chance of obtaining intermediate magic, and a 20% probability of receiving either a or a buff. He glanced at his partner, who remained motionless and unconscious, and silently concluded that, regardless of any stroke of luck the hero might have, casting the intended spell was simply out of reach. The thief reminds himself that the weapon he wields is the enchanted fireball, a magical spell ranked in the middle tier of power. He feels confident that, even if succeeds in using a spell of moderate strength, there is no chance for him to claim victory. The thief wielded magic of a strength surpassing level 50. Confident in his mental calculations, he felt certain that success was within his grasp. The thief, brimming with overconfidence, resolved to bring Streak of Fortune to a halt. Without hesitation, the small man unleashed a blazing fireball, aiming it straight at the hero. The hero remained perfectly composed, showing no sign of fear, and observed with quiet satisfaction that the thief had at last chosen to reveal his magical abilities. The man with green eyes gave a sly wink, signaling that he, too, was prepared to use his magic. The staff, seemingly ordinary at first, began to emit a bright glow as an unusual energy swirled around it. The force unleashes a tremendous surge of blazing energy. The gathered energy transformed into a glowing fireball that floated above his head. When the fireball grows to an immense size, the hero aims the object at the blazing sphere that the thief has just hurled. Upon witnessing the scene, the thief is so overwhelmed by shock that he falls to the ground, completely stunned. He is astonished that managed to perform such a complex spell, given that his chances of success were barely 1 in 2,000. A massive ball of fire hurtled straight at the thief. The small man reassures himself by believing that everything happening around him is merely a figment of his imagination. As the meteor approached, he came to understand that it was, in fact, real and not just a trick of his mind. He released a piercing scream that echoed through the air. Within seconds, fire engulfed the whole area. The thief soon lay motionless on the ground, knocked unconscious. At the same time, remains motionless, gripping the enchanted branch tightly as he tests the limits of his fortune. After claiming victory, the hero exhaled deeply, relief evident in their expression. At that moment, he understood that abandoning the wanderers in this place was not an option. As Hiro trimmed the vines hanging from the tree, he realized the task would not be easy. However, he was responsible for bringing the wrongdoers up to the surface. Used vines to bind the thief tightly, then started to pull him along behind. Hiro descended from the 5th floor and made their way down to the 1st floor. When he arrived on the 1st floor, he transferred responsibility for the wanderers to the police officers. He spent hours explaining everything to the officials, and by the time he finished, the sky had darkened, felt completely worn out. The following morning, Hiro made his way directly to the guild, determined to let them know about everything that had happened. He expressed regret for being late, while the guild staff member asked to verify whether he was. She offered a respectful salute and let know that the authorities had already communicated all the details to the guild. Experienced a wave of relief, realizing he was spared from having to recount the entire situation on his own. The staff member offered congratulations and informed everyone that he had advanced to the silver rank. The boy with green eyes reacted with astonishment when he learned that he had been promoted. He questioned whether an error had been made, since he couldn't believe he truly earned the title. She clarified that reaching silver rank was a difficult achievement. Typically, even the most talented players needed about 3 years to earn that promotion. To earn the silver rank, individuals were required to provide certain items, defeat a number of monsters, and make meaningful contributions to the guild's efforts. The staff member explained to him that everything was now confirmed, as those apprehended by turned out to be part of the Red Bull Gang. Observed that the Red Bull Gang operated as a highly structured group opposing social norms, which meant that his efforts within the gang had grown considerably. The staff member nodded in agreement and praised, pointing out that both of the individuals had apprehended held the status of silver rank. Stood in disbelief, coming to the sudden understanding that the thieves possessed remarkable strength. He truly found himself facing a difficult predicament. The girl extended the silver rank pendant toward him, her expression earnest. Hiro responded with a cheerful laugh, brushing off the praise by insisting that luck had simply been on his side. The staff member assured Hiro that modesty was unnecessary and explained that the guild wanted him to venture past the 1st floor. Adventurers faced limitations based on their rank when it came to exploring different floors. Those with a bronze rank were permitted to venture as high as the 10th floor, while silver-ranked individuals could reach up to the 30th floor. In contrast, gold-ranked adventurers enjoyed complete freedom, able to access any level without limitation. Hiro fastened the pendant around his neck, expressing his desire to reach at least the 20th floor during his exploration. The girl cast a wary glance in his direction and cautioned him about the dangers lurking in that challenging area. She recommended that he avoid going by himself, suggesting he should have someone accompany him. Expressed his gratitude for her guidance before turning and leaving. The boy with green eyes noticed that he had advanced in rank sooner than he thought he would, and he understood that catching the wanderers had brought him unexpected luck. Without warning, a voice called his name. He glanced over his shoulder and noticed an elderly man leaning on a cane. The elderly man inquired whether he was responsible for the deaths of the Red Bull Gang members. Recounted how the wanderers had launched an assault against him, prompting him to defend himself. The elderly man's hands shook as he reached for us, his eyes filling with tears. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he began to sob and expressed his heartfelt thanks too. Felt a wave of confusion wash over him as the elderly man clarified that had managed to apprehend wrongdoers who had always managed to evade the police. Shook his head, insisting that he was merely carrying out his responsibilities as an adventurer. The man lowered himself in a deep bow, his actions filled with gratitude. Hiro watched him, taken aback by how the man responded. The elderly man, his voice trembling with emotion, expressed that he could finally bring good news to his son's resting place. Remained motionless as he observed the sorrowful father slowly depart. In his past life, he realized, gratitude had been a stranger to him. As he gazed at the hands the elderly man was holding, he recognized a sense of significance in this simple gesture. He remembered that the world was fated to be destroyed, just as it had been in his past life. He wondered if having knowledge of what was to come meant he should attempt to alter destiny. He simply lifted his shoulders in indifference, reminding himself that he wasn't destined to save the world. He was merely someone who hunted slimes. At that moment, nothing mattered more to him than rescuing his mother. At the same time, the setting changed to a place illuminated by unsteady torchlight, where gleaming blades caught the glow. A large, bald man pounded his fist onto the table, his expression filled with fury. He could not accept that his partners had been defeated. Rage burned in the bald man's eyes. They knew that failure or any sign of vulnerability in front of their superiors was simply not an option. He grabbed a gleaming knife and forcefully brought his hand down onto a newspaper that displayed photograph. Taking the knife in his hand, he sliced directly across the picture of. He made it clear that he planned to take the other man's life. He put the knife down and reached for the newspaper once more. He reminded himself to stay cautious, knowing that had single-handedly taken down 2 members of the Red Bull gang. He extended his hand and picked up a nearby scarf. He wound the material around his head and quietly declared to himself that had become his next target. Stood on the 15th basement level. He looks around and realizes he is standing on the highest point of Lonely Mountain. He carefully surveys the dangerous mountain landscape, noting the slim, winding trails that cut through it. At the same time, a different band of adventurers arrived at the spot, discussing among themselves the possibility of dividing into 2 smaller teams. Notices that searching the area with others proves challenging, as the surroundings make it tough to spot his companions. Memories of the dungeon manual come to mind, reminding him that this part of the dungeon is frequently chosen as a site for illegal activities. He drew his sword and observed that the place was ideal for a lone hunter such as himself. All at once, he spots an enormous bird racing straight at him with incredible speed. Realizing he must become stronger before facing the dangers of the 20th floor, he decides to attack the oncoming bird in hopes of gaining new abilities. At first, planned to earn points by tracking down and defeating slimes. However, after eliminating many of them, the slimes vanished from the area. Soon after, came across a different creature and managed to overcome that foe as well. The hero resolved to defeat as many monsters as he could, aiming to strengthen his abilities. He pressed on, taking down creature after creature without pause. Thanks to his relentless hard work, he earned a new set of warrior gear which included a bow, a sword, and a set of gloves. Without knowledge, his actions were being closely observed. Hidden nearby, a vengeful member of the Red Bull gang kept a careful watch, determined to settle a score. The man observes intently, recognizing who he is after witnessing him battle solo and unprotected by armor. Seething with rage, the man harbors deep resentment toward for intruding upon his domain. He feels that others are not taking him seriously enough, but he holds back from confronting right away. Instead, he chooses to bide his time, planning to strike when the hero becomes careless. The man with the scarf noticed that the hero planned to remain on this level for some time. Suddenly, the bald man was struck by a clever plan. Instead of confronting head-on, he understood he could use the situation to his benefit, since was within his own domain. He realizes that monsters also form their own interconnected systems, much like those found in nature. He approaches a group of enormous birds gathered protectively around their young chick. Seizing the opportunity, the man demolished the nest and ended the life of the young bird as it fed on insects. The initial phase of his strategy involved decreasing the number of predators while allowing the prey population to grow. The next phase involved boosting the prey population. To achieve this, he traveled to a location teeming with insects. He tossed generous portions of food across the ground, attracting the attention of the monsters. The plentiful food supply led to the insects multiplying quickly, causing their numbers to surge out of control. Following these events, he heads back to his room and patiently awaits the moment when his scheme will unfold. The whole plan would seem like a simple, unavoidable accident, leaving others to believe the adventurer had just been unlucky. He firmly believes that using this approach will eliminate the hero, while keeping law enforcement unaware. The man moves forward, ready to complete his last action. They relied on a C-rank element called a repellent, which was effective at keeping medium-sized monsters away. He sprinkles the repellent across the swarm of insects. This forced the creatures to take flight all at once, desperately fleeing in large groups to avoid the threat. A sly smile spreads across his face as he quietly remarks that the green-eyed man will soon be consumed entirely by the swarming insects. At the same time, the hero continued to defeat monsters when unusual sounds caught his attention. He tries to figure out where the noise is coming from. He stands frozen in disbelief as a cloud of death hoppers suddenly fills his view. Doubts his ability to face the death hoppers on his own. He realized that working together with fellow adventurers was necessary. He dashes away from the pursuing swarm, his mind racing as he searches for a powerful group that could offer him protection. He suddenly recalled that, in his previous life, he had learned of a supply base located somewhere on this floor. The exchange had brought up that, following the creation of the clearing on Triangle Mountain. Rewritten, the journey up Lonely Mountain Peak had become much simpler than before. An observer pointed out that the base could be found deep inside Red Earth Cave. Strangely, the hero's map did not show where the cave was hidden. He moves toward a sharp drop and leaps off the edge. Bracing himself, he leaned on his sword for support. Upon arriving at the base, he observes that the soil has taken on a noticeably different hue. He raises his voice, loudly summoning any adventurers who might be nearby. Receiving only silence, he chooses to push the door open and enter by force. He is taken aback when he discovers a crowd of people bound with ropes inside the cave, wearing nothing but their underwear. Remained motionless, his mind racing as he tried to decide on his next course of action. Uncertainty filled him as he questioned his immediate options. He briefly wondered if he had stumbled into an ongoing ceremony. He suddenly realizes that everyone around him has been tied up. Understanding the gravity of the moment, the hero quickly seizes his sword and ventures into the dark cave. With practiced skill, he cuts through every rope restraining the prisoners. Once they were released, the people expressed their deep appreciation for rescuing them, as despair had taken hold of them before his arrival. The hero wanted to know what had taken place. One member of the group recounts how a group of thieves attacked them, leaving them unconscious. An irritated woman explained to him that the thieves had spared their lives with the intention of selling them. Froze in place as he noticed the adventurers' support center had been transformed into the site of a crime. He starts to question whether he has unintentionally encountered something that was always meant to occur. He remembers how things were in the life he lived before. Authorities were planning to apprehend the wanderers soon. The location was intended to be transformed into a headquarters for adventurers. He appeared to have gotten there before the events were meant to unfold. He remembers that during his previous lifetime, he rarely noticed the things happening nearby, dedicating 70 years of his life entirely to chasing after slimes. He dismisses the thought for now, deciding that a closer examination can wait until later. As he examined those held captive, the man with green eyes realized that events had taken an unforeseen turn. The captives became the sole resource that could be turned against the terrifying. He reached out to them, recognizing their surprise, but insisted that they pay close attention to what he had to say. He informs the group that a large group is heading their way. There seemed to be countless hoppers everywhere. After hearing his words, everyone stood in shock at the sight of the massive swarm of death hoppers. One member of the group questioned his certainty about whether every creature present was truly a death hopper. Meanwhile, another individual voiced alarm at the overwhelming number surrounding them. Informed the group that they needed to act quickly, and that their only chance of survival depended on working together with him. Hearing the word cooperate leaves everyone puzzled. A woman pointed out the impossibility of the situation, emphasizing that they lacked even the most basic protection like armor. One member of the group nodded in agreement, pointing out that the thieves had also taken all of their gear. Offered a warm smile as he let them know that he already had the necessary equipment. He proceeded to access his inventory and a large assortment of weapons is suddenly revealed. He spread the weapons out before the group, signaling for each person to pick the one they preferred. he is also able to give them full ownership. The group stared in shock, unable to believe what they were seeing, and wondered aloud whether he truly meant it, since all the items in question had simply been picked up from the ground. A woman expressed her amazement, noting that every one of them was uncommon. Meanwhile, a man questioned in his mind how had managed to gather such a large collection. At that point, the group started to wonder together about the true identity of the hero. None of them had ever spotted him listed among the ranks of adventurers. The group began selecting the weapons that suited them best. One individual gravitated toward a pair of swords, while his companion voiced his dissatisfaction before ultimately deciding on a spear. Several individuals opt for sturdy armor, convinced that safeguarding themselves takes precedence over wielding any weapon. The individual who chose the sword felt a surge of happiness, imagining the wealth he could gain if he decided to sell it. Everyone felt pleased with their new armor and weapons. One woman questioned in her mind whether the man with green eyes was truly providing them with all of these weapons. The hero explained that, in exchange, he wished to take charge and lead them. The group murmured among themselves, all in agreement that he had not only rescued them, but had also provided the tools they needed to survive. He remembered an incident from his later years when someone had shoved him. He expressed his gratitude to them for accepting. He scans the area and notices that the cave's tight entrance could work in their favor. By using this strategy, the group ensured that they confronted just a manageable few death hoppers at any given moment. He informs everyone that their attention must be directed toward lowering the figures. Everyone themselves, with preparations for the upcoming battle. At the front, holds his sword tightly in his hands. With determination in his tone, he announces that the moment to stand and battle has arrived. Suddenly, a swarm of monsters poured into the cave. The hero moved to the front, expertly slicing through the hoppers with his sword. The other adventurers battled from his rear, relying on him to lead the charge. Armed with the weapons he had provided, they prepared to defend themselves. At the same time, a massive horde of monsters assembled outside the cave, but the creatures found it difficult to get inside because the entrance was so cramped. As the fight raged on, the monsters shifted their focus and started attacking the entrance. Cracks began to appear along the stony walls as the immense crowd pressed forward. The sheer volume of creatures caused the tunnel to stretch wider, and as the entrance grew larger, even more monsters flooded into the cavern. As the relentless horde pressed forward, one of the adventurers cried out in alarm, overwhelmed by the sheer number of enemies surrounding them. His companion agreed, observing that the situation seemed endless. Catches fragments of their conversation and observes that the swarm remains stalled, unable to move forward. He comes to the conclusion that their strategy is failing. Without warning, cracks began to spread across the cave's ceiling. Realizing the danger, one team member quickly warned the group that the cave was on the verge of collapsing. The hero commanded the group to fall back, insisting they keep their formation intact as they. The ceiling gave way all at once, creating an opening through which the monsters surged into the room. An adventurer expressed his worry that, if the situation persisted, the monsters could end up devouring the entire mountain. The group's attention shifts too as they look to him for guidance. He carefully examines the area around them, searching for a possible solution. Upon noticing the cave's incomplete structure, it became clear that the area was unstable. At that moment, he notices an explosive device positioned just outside the entrance to the cave. He thinks the wanderers may have abandoned the dynamite when they were attempting to make the space larger. Moving quickly, he gathers the bombs, recognizing a chance to use them to his benefit. At that moment, a notification pops up. Managed to find some low-grade dynamite. Without hesitation, he signaled to the nearby adventurers, directing them to gather every piece of the dynamite. The group of adventurers fanned out to inspect their surroundings. As they searched, one member discovered a stick of dynamite and realized it could serve as a potential weapon. Uncertainty washed over the group of adventurers, leaving them hesitant as they had not yet figured out the precise way to handle the dynamite. And the group of adventurers spent hours fighting against the relentless death hoppers, their struggle stretching far into the day. Nearly 66% of the mountain lay in ruins. Despite everything they had done to resist, the relentless attack from the monstrous force continued without any hint of slowing down. The cave swarms with monsters from wall to wall. Two adventurers remain motionless, paralyzed by fear. The girl's voice shakes as she confesses their hopeless entrapment. Several people shouted that they were exhausted and warned that the wall was close to collapsing. Instructed the group to hand over every stick of dynamite to him. He suddenly understood just how serious the situation had become. One after another, the adventurers started giving him their contributions. The one who went first expressed his skepticism, wondering aloud if this sum would truly be sufficient to defeat the monsters. One of the adventurers compares their efforts to a single drop falling into the vast ocean, while a heavy feeling of despair hangs over the group. Came up with a strategy. He planned to set off the dynamite, causing the whole place to cave in. He entombs the monsters beneath the collapsed debris, then pulls the gathered dynamite from his inventory. Taking into account that Death Hoppers possessed very limited intelligence, he carefully distributed the sticks of dynamite around the area, choosing each spot with deliberate precision. The memory surfaced that monsters instinctively pursue whoever has slain the greatest number among them. At that particular moment, became the focus of attention. The monsters succeeded in smashing a large gap through the cave's ceiling. Realizing the danger, one of the adventurers urgently alerted the group that the entire cave was on the verge of collapsing. The hero raised their voice, urgently commanding the group of adventurers to escape. As the group broke into a sprint, one of them hesitated near the exit, glancing back to question whether the hero planned to risk his own life by luring them away. Meanwhile, another member of the party let out a derisive laugh, doubting the warrior's ability and pointing out that he could hardly wield his weapon as it was. The hero flashed a self-assured grin, assuring the others that he was fully aware of his actions and requesting their trust in him. As expected, the monsters closed in and surrounded the hero. Remaining motionless, he considers how life sometimes demands that individuals embrace uncertainty and take chances. He proceeded to instruct the system, causing the dynamite to be fully detonated. A message appears on the screen, requesting approval, and quickly gives his consent. He sprang from the cave, summoning the Death Hoppers with a loud call. At that moment, a fresh notification popped up unexpectedly. The hero received a warning that there was only a 50% chance the detonation would work. Even though he understood that his own skills were not high enough to use this power, he believed he might still pull it off because of his unusually high luck. A new alert appeared, explaining that the rough quality of the items had caused the chance of success to fall to just 25%. A fresh alert appeared, confirming that the explosion had gone as planned. Seeing this, the hero let out a deep breath of relief. At that instant, every stick of dynamite detonated at once, wiping out the creatures trapped within the cavern. As the explosion erupts above, maneuvers skillfully downward, ensuring he remains out of harm's way. The hero unleashed the power of the Great Layer Striker. With a swift display of swordsmanship, the last of the insects were eliminated in an instant. Although the fight appears to have ended, the boy with green eyes suddenly notices an enormous insect. The creature refused to yield, showing its resilience. Fixed his gaze on the beast, his determination clear as he resolved that this would be its final stand. He himself, for one last attack, channeling the precision of the bee sting technique. With swift determination, he landed a decisive blow. The onlookers observed the whole fight and realized that the enormous insect seemed to focus its attacks on alone. The hero plunged his sword into the rocky surface, using it as an anchor to halt his downward slide and regain his balance. His grip on the sword faltered, leading him to lose his balance and tumble to the ground. At that moment, someone unexpectedly tossed a rope in his direction. A voice shouted, encouraging him to reach out so they could help lift him to safety. Reached out and took hold of the rope, while the rest of the adventurers who had managed to flee the cave joined forces to grip the rope alongside him. The hero was lifted higher as his companions managed to pull him to safety. Perched at the brink, the hero pondered his recent victory, realizing that fortune had favored him above all else. The group of adventurers clustered around the boy with striking green eyes, their faces filled with appreciation. A woman among them pointed out that he had been the reason they survived. Someone else remarked that escaping a monster frenzy without anyone getting hurt was nothing short of miraculous. Joy spreads throughout the group and experiences a profound sense of satisfaction. The story moves to a different place, showing the furious gang member who had carried out the attack. After learning that had wiped out the swarm, he unleashed his fury, wrecking everything in his path. His rage grew even stronger when he discovered that the hero had also demolished their base. Realizing the danger he was in, he felt a surge of panic as it became clear that the higher-ups would soon have him killed if things continued this way. The man, consumed by resentment toward the hero, reaches for a bottle of liquor. He swallowed the drink in one swift motion, fury overtaking him. Determined to end the hero's life no matter the consequences, he resolved to go through with his deadly plan, even at the expense of his own survival. At the same time, inside the Adventurers Guild, stands in the middle of the room, drawing the attention of everyone around him. He comes to understand that, because of what has happened lately, his name is now well known among other adventurers. The guild receptionist walked over to him with a cheerful expression, informing him that he had once again succeeded and had earned a promotion. The adventurers nearby whispered among themselves, casting curious glances at the hero. Someone pointed out in awe that this was the very man responsible for leveling an entire mountain. A female adventurer added that, according to what she had heard, he had also rescued countless people. In a different part of the area, a pair of guild members kept a careful eye on him. One attempted to persuade to join his own guild, but his words were cut short when the second member quickly stepped in, urging the hero to pick his guild over the first. Pushed his way through the bustling crowd, deliberately avoiding anyone who tried to catch his attention. Determined to remain independent, he chose not to become part of any guild. Everyone stared at him in disbelief, while he convinced himself that forming friendships or alliances was a waste of his precious time. His primary objective revolves around acquiring the restorative elixir. He proceeded to access his inventory, considering the unpredictable nature of how rewards were handed out after team fights. Additionally, he came to understand that since few people ever acquired rare items, relying solely on luck would not be sufficient. He left the guild, reflecting on how things had unfolded differently in his previous life. He had always operated alone, so this situation felt familiar to him. Upon arriving back at his house, he discovered an extravagant meal awaiting him. His sister, brimming with excitement, informed him that he was free to eat to his heart's content. The hero sat down at the dining table with his mother and sister. A sense of thankfulness filled the room. Afterward, they bow their heads in gratitude, silently offering thanks for the food before them. At that moment, the hero experiences a comforting sense of belonging that only family can bring. A wave of nostalgia washed over him as he remembered how, no matter how little they had, his family always found a way to celebrate every special occasion. His sister bursts with enthusiasm as she congratulates him on his impressive victory, eagerly letting him know that he has at last earned the right to attempt the challenge of the 20th floor. The hero's mother gazes at him, worry etched across her face, and wonders aloud whether he is really all right. She explains that the neighbors had informed her the 20th trial marks a significant milestone for all adventurers. Her concern showing, shared that she had looked up information online, and discovered that just 15% of adventurers ever managed to make it to the 20th floor. His mother expressed her disapproval when she noticed him putting away his phone at the dinner table. Meanwhile, attempted to calm both his mother and sister, assuring them of his well-being and explaining that he had accomplished so much in just a brief period. His mother looked at the newspaper clipping showing her son's picture, pride shining in her eyes as she expressed how much his heroic accomplishment meant to her. She hoped he would take care of himself and not overexert. She made it clear that any parent would feel heartbroken to witness their child give up everything for someone else. Reflects on the past, remembering the moment he lost his mother. Tears welled up in his eyes as he expressed how difficult it was for any child to witness their parents falling ill. His mother began to speak again, but cut her off, firmly expressing that continuing the conversation would be useless. She explains that her brother has a history of being headstrong. Whenever he makes up his mind about something, he becomes impossible to persuade otherwise. His mother released a weary sigh, remarking that her son reminded her so much of his father. The hero kept eating, offering comfort to his family by letting them know that he chose this path because it brought him joy. His mother and sister resumed eating their meal. As he observed his mother, he remembered the pain of being unable to rescue his mother in his past life. The hero felt this truth deeply, as if it had been carved into their heart. He longed to wipe away his history, believing that only the elixir could grant him that chance. Once finished eating, he bowed his head in thanks, offering a silent prayer of gratitude. He steps outside his home, determined to pursue his mission. The setting moves to the dungeon's 20th floor. The place was famous as the Great Wall of Hyperphysics. Upon entering the dungeon, he immediately realized that the 20th floor stood apart from all the others. Without warning, a pair of strange beings emerged in front of him. It became clear to the hero that all the monsters encountered on this level were artificial in nature. He had never come across beings like these before. Without hesitation, he lunged at the creatures, slashing at them with his swords before they could react. He then observes that these emotionless and ruthless dekillers pose a serious danger. He suddenly finds himself surrounded as an even more menacing horde of creatures closes in, launching attacks from every side. Despite the flurry of assaults, the hero skillfully used his fighting prowess to deflect every strike and swiftly defeat his opponents. He comes to understand that the real threat is not their physical power, but rather the organized way they approach every situation. The hero's attention is drawn to a gate ahead, yet a mound of rocks with a vivid red shine blocks the way. Without warning, the rocks shifted and assembled themselves into a powerful creature, far stronger than any ordinary monster. Realized that by studying the stone beast's movements, victory could be within reach. The monster surged forward, initiating its assault. The hero tries to defend against the creature's attacks, while attempting to land a hit in return. Despite the hero's efforts, the attack fails to cause any harm, as the creature's stony surface protects it from damage. Although faced with challenges, the hero remains determined to overcome the 20th floor. When the creature launches another assault, swiftly springs forward, directing his blade at the beast's eye. With a precise and powerful strike, he brings down the monster. Moved closer, reaching out to unlock the gate that the monster had been protecting. Set out that day determined to take control of his destiny. When he pushed the gate open, he stepped inside a spacious hall, its floor marked with elaborate circles drawn for magical rituals. Without warning, the door closed behind them with a loud, powerful bang. A gigantic stone creature emerged, towering over the gatekeeper in both size and strength. Carefully examined every inch of the creature, searching for any sign of a vulnerable spot. As he studied it, the monster stirred, preparing to launch an assault against him. The hero comes to understand that this creature is the ancient golem, the formidable boss guarding the 20th floor. The hero notices that his adversary has an unusually strong physique, along with enhanced offensive strength. He observes the monster's movements and concludes that, for a boss, its speed is only moderate. He raised his sword and swung it at the creature, hoping to land a blow. The attack failed to cause any damage. The hero made up their mind to shatter the core of the monster. A gang member concealed himself behind a door, quietly observing everything that was happening. Without warning, the magical circles etched on the floor began to emit a vivid red light. Suddenly, a new creature emerged. The hero's eyes widened in astonishment as they glanced over at the unexpected sight. They glanced about, searching for an explanation behind it. He becomes aware that someone has broken in, yet he cannot detect anyone else nearby. Even a beginner knew better than to disrupt a boss fight. It was a mistake no one would dare to make. The feeling grew stronger on the 20th floor, without warning. A gang member hurled a sharp dagger toward the hero, aiming to strike them down. Despite being ambushed, the hero skillfully blocks the incoming dagger with his sword, showing no sign of struggle. The boy with green eyes now felt certain that the double raid had been deliberate, not a coincidence. The intruder's eyes burned with fury as he stared at, stunned that his attack had been stopped so easily. Despite the hero's impressive abilities, he remains confident in his own victory, believing that his exceptional prowess as a master thief gives him the upper hand. He considers foolish for challenging the boss by himself. He remembers entering the gate, an action that triggered the appearance of the second boss. The thief feels certain that his sneaky abilities will allow him to defeat the hero. The story uncovers that the thief has a unique ability called the footstep skill, enabling him to slip quietly and easily through groups of monsters. In addition, he possessed the shadow crossing skill, which allowed him to slip into areas inhabited by monsters and incite them into a furious state. In addition, he possesses a cloak that makes him difficult to see. Because of all these powers, the thief feels certain that overcoming the boy will be easy for him. Carefully observed the area around him. To him, this situation wasn't an uneven match, but rather a challenge where he faced 3 opponents alone. The intruder produced a second dagger and carefully applied a layer of poison to its blade. He notes that striking with the poisoned blade would result in the hero's immediate death. He hurled the dagger at, convinced that attacking from a distance would give him the upper hand. The blade grazed the hero's face, leaving only a slight mark along his cheek as it passed. The thief receives word that his plan to poison someone has not succeeded. Surprise washes over him as he tries to figure out where might have concealed the antidote supplies. He quickly convinces himself that it's unimportant, since the dagger only served as a distraction. His true strength lies in setting traps. Once he is prepared, he throws a handful of tiny spheres. Without warning, the spheres started emitting countless minuscule arrows that fanned out in all directions. He confidently believes that mastering this move will secure his win. Without hesitation, he activates his shadow crossing ability. The intruder linked the pallets in the hallway with wires that carried an electric charge. He reflects on his lifelong dependence on traps and soon devises a fresh strategy. With numerous traps set all around, it seemed inevitable that would be left with nowhere to escape. The boss would take care of him on their own, without any intervention. The hero suddenly comes under assault from both bosses at once, and realizes he is completely encircled by hidden traps. The thief leaned back with a satisfied grin, feeling accomplished and at ease, confident that all that remained was to watch the outcome of his actions unfold. As he noticed expertly avoiding the traps, his cheerful expression slowly disappeared, unsettled by his unwavering gaze fixed directly on him. His surprise grew even more upon noticing the hero watching him with a taunting grin, silently questioning whether he had exhausted all of his schemes. The intruder's expression showed complete shock as he questioned inwardly whether had discovered his presence. The hero jeered at the intruder, demanding that he speak up instead of staying silent. In response, the intruder hurled a dagger toward the hero, but the hero swiftly moved out of its path. The hero believes that the gang member is following him everywhere due to an unhealthy obsession. The gang member cannot believe what he hears and demands to know how his location has been discovered. The hero responded by explaining that the ability was widely recognized. The man insisted that the hero speak the truth, convinced that a basic skill could never stand up to more advanced abilities. The hero gripped his swords tightly and taunted the man with a smug expression. She wondered whether, if he found out the truth, fear would make him flee. The man's anger flared up, feeling deeply insulted by the hero's lack of respect for his abilities. The villain lunged at the hero, shouting about his own superiority. The boy with green eyes swiftly evaded the incoming strike. He swung his sword at the intruder, sending the man crashing to the ground. The hero holds the conviction that claiming superiority is a right reserved solely for a true savior. He kept hitting the thief, and every time he did, the thief became more and more annoyed. The intruder was astonished that had managed to track him down with nothing more than a basic ability such as warrior intuition. He repeated his accusation, insisting the hero was not telling the truth. In response, firmly any dishonesty. He truly had the warrior instinct ability, and he chose to use it while on the 20th floor. Once triggered, this power enabled him to sense any threats nearby. When the hero tried to use it, the chances of it working were almost non-existent, barely above zero. He trusted his good fortune, certain that it would lead to success. As if on cue, it happened right then. The hero's awareness sharpened, allowing him to notice every threat in his surroundings, regardless of how insignificant it might seem. With this advantage, he was able to identify the positions of the traps as well as the precise spot where the thief was hiding. After being sent sprawling by, the thief forces himself back up, surprised by how quickly his opponent moved for someone considered to be such a low-level warrior. Offered a mocking expression of gratitude to the gang member, his tone dripping with sarcasm as he pretended to appreciate the remark. He intercepted the attack once more, preventing it from landing. The thief observed that, even though the hero moved quickly, he remained nothing more than a simple warrior in the thief's eyes. He spoke with assurance, outlining how his agility exceeded and insisting that his accuracy was unmatched. At that instant, the thief slashes the hero's arm with a sword coated in a new paralyzing poison. Despite the fresh wound, a prompt quickly pops up, letting the hero know that their body has fought off the paralysis. The thief is surprised to see that the poison has no effect on the hero. He observed the ongoing battle, noting how the hero had clearly trained to handle surprises. Without warning, the hero executed an astonishingly high jump, disappearing from sight in an instant. Suddenly, he materialized behind the thief, dropping down from above with his sword slashing toward his target. Despite the force of the blow, the thief seemed almost unfazed, quickly dodging away to a safer distance. With a mocking glance, the thief observed that the hero was still at a disadvantage. The hero made up their mind to unleash the bee sting technique, sending a forceful blow in the direction of the thief. The thief responded with laughter, openly acknowledging the attack as both impressive and carefully planned. He stopped mid-sentence and swiftly initiated a fighting move called the butterfly dance. This ability enabled him to dart around with remarkable swiftness, leaving the hero unable to connect any attacks. The hero found himself baffled by his opponent's effortless ability to dodge every attack. The observer notices the thief gliding into motion with remarkable ease. As the attack unfolded, the character demonstrated the butterfly dance, a technique that seamlessly blended impeccable attacks with effortless dodges. He explains that when two skills clash, the person with the superior rank will always prevail. Utilizing the agility bestowed by the butterfly dance and the swiftness of cat's footsteps, the thief successfully lands another injury on. Buoyed by his fleeting upper hand, he raises his voice with newfound confidence, boldly taunting and insisting that someone as slow as him could never hope to catch up. Despite his overwhelming pride clouding his judgment, he neglects the importance of staying concealed, putting himself at risk of being noticed by the monsters. The floor boss noticed the hero and hurled a blazing fireball toward him. Reacting quickly, the hero relied on warrior's instinct, moving just in time to avoid the incoming attack. The thief skillfully dodged the fire, his eyes gleaming with excitement as he marveled at the thrills the 20th floor had to offer. He paused briefly, then launched another attack against the hero. He explains that avoiding the floor boss's attacks is possible for him, because its movements are always predictable. He glanced toward the hero, questioning whether the guild had been the source of this information as well. The hero remained silent, concentrating solely on deflecting each blow from the thief. In spite of the wounds inflicted by the tainted blade, he pressed on. Despite his caution, he suffers another injury to his leg when he steps on one of the thief's sharp weapons that are strewn across the floor. The thief points out that the hero has likely figured out there aren't any unapproved people on the 20th floor. From the moment the battle began, there was no doubt that he was destined to lose. He unleashed a powerful assault on the hero, employing a move known as Scorpion's Edge. At that moment, the hero's injuries left him so weak that he couldn't protect himself. The thief follows up with a forceful blow that knocks him off his feet, leaving him utterly incapacitated. The hero fell to the ground, unable to remain standing any longer. The weapon tumbled from his hands, leaving him defenseless and unable to fight back. Right then, the thief becomes certain he has succeeded, convinced that the perfect opportunity has arrived to deliver the final strike. The thief hurled himself toward the hero, declaring that the hero's time had run out. Panic erupted from the hero as he realized the thief was closing in to deliver the final blow. In the following moment, he cast a mischievous look toward the thief, then playfully stuck out his tongue, making it clear through his actions that he had only been teasing. Afterward, the stone emits a unique glow, setting it apart from the rest. Consequently, the thief unexpectedly becomes enclosed within a see-through bubble, which surrounds him completely and prevents any chance of escape. Still reeling from the unexpected turn of events, the thief, once confident in his impending triumph, gazed at the hero in shock. Doubt clouded his eyes as he tried to comprehend if the hero had actually turned the tables by using a gravity trap against him. The hero stood up, grabbed his sword, and noted how the thief had repeatedly claimed there were no intruders present, though the hero still saw no one nearby. At this moment, the bubble constricted around the thief, leaving him barely able to move his lips or form words. The hero goes on to clarify that the data gathered by the guild applies solely to the original conditions of the floor. Despite their expectations, the guild never imagined that an unpredictable outsider would step in and join the fight against the floor boss. Inside the bubble, the thief's health rapidly declines until every breath feels like a struggle. Confusion and fear overwhelm him as he wonders if this strange ordeal could possibly be real. At the same time, the pair of monsters started advancing toward the hero, preparing to launch their attack. The hero intercepted the attack and observed that the monster's actions had shifted in response to being targeted by two opponents at once. He ridiculed the thief, pointing out how the man referred to himself as a thief. He remained oblivious to the hidden dangers lurking throughout the area. The thief's irritation intensified as he insisted that the situation was beyond belief. The hero was expected to engage in battle with the courage of a true warrior, rather than depending on cunning traps. The protective bubble shattered, leaving him exposed as the monsters lunged toward him in a sudden assault. The thief is puzzled, unable to understand how such a thing could happen. A monster reached out with its rocky hands, seized the thief, and hurled him forcefully to the ground. The intruder, badly wounded and stunned, struggled to comprehend what had just happened. Despite his impressive ability to uncover hidden things, he failed to notice a high-level trap lurking nearby. He wonders aloud how came to learn about it. Explained that he relied on his instincts as a warrior, something he had been insisting on since the beginning. The intruder, badly hurt, sprawls across the floor, writhing in agony. Instructed him to remain in place as he prepared to confront the boss himself. He plans to turn the thief in to the authorities, assuming the injuries haven't claimed the man's life. Without warning, the intruder directed a menacing threat toward the hero. He warned him to stay away. The hero stared in disbelief as the man burst into uncontrollable laughter. Explosives covered his torso, making it clear he intended to take others with him if he died. He explains that these explosives are unlike any traps he has set in the past. Began to sweat nervously, completely unsure about the unpredictable person in front of him. After that, the system prompted for verification, and the thief indicated his decision to activate the bomb. A massive blast erupts, engulfing the surroundings in flames. Suddenly, the ground gives way beneath him, sending him tumbling down into a secret chamber concealed below. He was surprised to discover a hidden room below. He soon notices that the exit is positioned far above him, out of reach. No matter how hard he tries, climbing back up proves impossible. Without warning, the stone monster boss leaped down from the heights above. Found himself cornered with no way out. Just then, his attention was drawn to something unexpected nearby. A bright light caught his attention from the edge of his sight. A treasure box catches his attention. Memories surface about hidden rooms often safeguarding valuable treasures. He scans the area swiftly, alert for any threats. He realized that the cramped space left him no chance of overcoming the boss with ordinary combat tactics. He realized that risking it all on the treasure was his sole option. He launched himself at the boss, determined to break through its defenses and claim the treasure concealed just out of reach behind the towering figure. However, his efforts result only in him getting hurt. He swung his sword at the monster once more, landing another blow. Despite his efforts, none of his strikes seemed to harm the creature. The boss struck him with a powerful punch, causing blood to trickle from his wound. The creature lunged once more, prompting to duck behind a massive boulder for protection. He lets out a sigh of relief, grateful that his back remains uninjured. However, the sense of relief quickly fades away. The monster hurled the rock aside and brought its foot down hard on him. He was badly hurt and couldn't believe the boss continued to launch relentless attacks. He now lay on the floor, covered in blood as a result of the boss's attack. Despite the searing pain coursing through him, he tightened his fist, resolve hardening within him as he refused to surrender. Once more, the stone monster launched its assault, resulting in an even greater flow of blood. Despite the discomfort, barely seemed to notice. For 70 years, he had endured the sorrow of feeling worthless. Displaying unwavering determination, he arrives at the treasure and opens the box to discover a shackle inside. Noticed the item and with a faint smile, slipped it over himself. The treasure contained precisely what he required. Among the items, there was a shackle called the Bracelet of Teleportation. The object granted its possessor the ability to instantly travel to any place they wished. The solution fit exactly what was going through at that moment. The system displayed a message, requesting that he verify his decision. Just as the creature's enormous limbs descend, it nearly overwhelms the hero beneath their weight. The system urgently that he did not match the requirements for the magic tool, and there was only a 50% chance it would activate successfully. After that, the likelihood decreases even more, falling to 35%, while the chance of success shrinks down to only 15%. Without warning, a surge of blue energy bursts forth from the bracelet as the system announces that teleportation has been activated successfully. He suddenly materialized behind the first boss, his stance unwavering as he prepared to finish it off. He swung his sword and brought it down upon the monster's head. A sudden flash of red light erupted from the top of the boss's head. A sudden and forceful blast erupted. Soon understands that defeating the second boss will be far more challenging than he expected. Despite the destruction left by the explosion, the creature continued to show signs of life. Activated the bracelet once more. She suddenly appeared right in front of the boss, materializing at its chest. He drove his sword straight into the creature's weak spot. Despite the intense battle, neither of the monster bosses had been defeated yet. The red light monster raised its fist, preparing to launch a powerful punch. Vanished in an instant, teleporting away once more. The blue light boss suddenly unleashed an attack. He activated the bracelet again, skillfully avoiding danger, and found renewed determination within himself. He reminded himself that, regardless of how often he might fail, he refused to surrender. Fueled by determination, he vaulted over the boss, targeting its weak point with another precise attack. He repeatedly activated the bracelet's teleportation ability. The character focused on the boss's weak spots, delivering quick and precise blows with their sword. He likens what is happening to the endless act of throwing dice, each toss bringing new uncertainty. The person kept rolling the dice, hoping for a 6 and silently wishing for success. The pair of monsters advanced toward him, one approaching from each side. Found himself caught in the middle, unable to escape. A coordinated assault was on the verge of commencing. He vanishes and reappears somewhere else just before it's too late. The impact forced the bosses into one another, sending them both tumbling down to the floor. The hero acted swiftly, immediately launching the powerful B-string strike. Delivering a powerful blow, the hero struck the first monster with such force that its body broke apart into countless fragments. With steadfast resolve, he unleashes mighty strike, delivering the final blow to defeat the second boss. Having at last defeated the second golem, suddenly drops to the floor, his strength giving out beneath him. After the exhausting fight, the character was left badly wounded and utterly depleted of energy. The bracelet signals that it can no longer function and needs to be recharged. The system notifies him of his victory over the ancient golem boss on 2 occasions, and reveals that he has acquired a pair of L-rank elixirs as a result. Suddenly, the elixirs materialize before his eyes. A smile spread across their face as they caught sight of the bottles. He picked one up and took a sip. While he moved, a glowing green aura began to surround his entire body. He loses consciousness. The following morning, rays of sunlight filtered down through the ceiling of the concealed chamber. Gradually awakens and notices that the elixir bottle is in his grasp. The system informed him that he had fulfilled unique requirements, and as a result, it would bestow a rare title upon him. His energy surged by 10 points, his power grew by 20, and his agility improved by 10. Carefully stored both the elixir and the bracelet within his inventory system. He tightens his hold on the sword with determination. He sprang forward, unleashing a rapid series of blows. As he touched down, his eyes caught sight of a white cloak stained red with blood. He questions whether this might serve as sufficient proof of wrongdoing. He pushes open the door to the boss room and he returns to the surface. When he arrived back, he informed the guild of everything that had happened. He hands the cloak to the receptionist, leaving her utterly astonished. Comes to understand that he has, it seems, accomplished something rather important. Meanwhile, the receptionist hurries away to contact a superior. The situation appeared likely to spark significant unrest. At that moment, a man walked up to the hero and requested an interview. Politely declines the offer, explaining that he is too busy and expresses his apologies. He made his way back to his apartment, clutching the elixir with hopes of helping his mother. As he moved through the halls, the eyes of those around him began to follow his every step. Suddenly, she recognized him as the person featured in recent news reports. On a towering building nearby, an enormous television screen announced that he had just set a new speed record for climbing to the 20th floor. After some time, he reaches his apartment. He arrived to find his sister and mother greeting him, their faces bright with joyful, inviting smiles. He presented the elixir to the group. The following day, events unfolded at the hospital. The doctor announces that the results of Smother's thorough medical tests have come in. Her illness had been fully healed, and his sister's faces lit up with happiness as they eagerly turned to the doctor, seeking reassurance that what they hoped for was true. The doctor described the elixir's incredible results, assuring everyone that their mother had regained her health. Tears of happiness streamed down the green-eyed girl's face as she embraced her mother tightly. Smother reached out with care, wrapping her hand around his, and expressed her heartfelt gratitude to him. His eyes filled with tears as he expressed his gratitude to her for bringing him up. He had been longing to express these thoughts for quite some time. The girl with green eyes looked down, a faint blush coloring her cheeks as embarrassment washed over her. She gently pointed out that they were still at the hospital and suggested they save the conversation for when they got home. The hero nodded in agreement. She then commented that her brother frequently overlooked his surroundings. Without warning, a dull grayness washes over everything. A man climbed in through the window, making his way into the hospital room. The golden man observed the scene with a sense of regret, reflecting on how unfair it was that a loving family like theirs had to experience such sorrow. The only upside in his view is that they have already been admitted to the hospital. The man himself to strike at, mentally observing that her life would end due to heart failure. Intervenes and prevents the assault from happening. The character wondered about the man's actions. The man stared in disbelief as the hero continued to move, unfazed by the powers that had been unleashed upon him. Glanced at the unfamiliar figure, and recognition flashed across his face as he identified the intruder. Standing in front of him was the person everyone knew as the hero. Known throughout the land as the mightiest adventurer, this figure also held the title of legendary savior. The man revealed his name to be. He proudly displayed his necklace, making it clear through his confident demeanor that being a hero was his genuine occupation. Still bewildered, wondered aloud about the reason a hero would target. Informed the others that the force trapping everything in ice around them was known as the void barrier. Those who have felt their very soul perish are the only ones able to travel through this place. He concludes by stating his belief that is likely someone who has experienced regression. The character expressed their gratitude